So if a person wants something, he got to earn it. So this is what Hashem said. Hashem said, if you want parnasah, you want these things, you want godliness, now start earning it with these mitzvot. Okay, so that's the, in a small level, that's the scale of what the way God created the world. So he wants to create Yud Kei Vav Kei. He wants us to understand Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is again tzedakah. But we don't understand it. Where do we begin to start understanding? From our perspective. That's why the entire world is concerned about that last letter Hey. Right? So the inside that last letter Hey, that we said in the Siddur, is what letters? Aleph, Dalet, Nun, Yud, which means my master. So now we understand how it's talking about. Hashem said, like I said again, the last Hey represents the 5 fingers of the receiver. For the receiver to actually receive, he needs to have a parnasa. For him to have a parnasa so that he doesn't get embarrassed. So that he will be able to receive completely, without any lacking. Because if he's embarrassed when he receives, it's better that he didn't receive at all. Maybe this is the message. Leave that other thing around. But if he receives the way he's supposed to receive, meaning through his working, it means he's got a master over him. It's called Aleph, Dalet, Nun, Yud. So up to here we understand. There's 2 phases. There's Havaya, Yud, Kei, Vav, Kei, and it's Aleph, Dalet, Nun, Yud. And the 2 work together. For us to understand the tzedakah, God's message, again, the Yud represents a small coin. Coin, we don't mean literally coin, but it's a message. It's a thought. It's an idea. Think about it. When you think about something in your mind, it's a small idea. When you start bringing it out, and it starts to come on paper, and from paper to words, it becomes all of a sudden you fill up volumes of books on it. But what was in your mind was like this big, now became huge. So this is the coin that the ani, that the poor person is trying to receive. So again, God wants to give it to him, but he causes him to have to earn it. Okay? So now we understand on a simple level why we have 8 strings on the tzitzit. 4 representing Yud Kei Vav Kei, and 4 representing Aleph, Dalet, Nun, Yud. Now, we know that whenever we're davening, right, we call in Aleph, Dalet, Nun, Yud. So the strings are going to represent another phase, and we discussed this a little bit last week, and we'll discuss it again in detail. The name Yud Kei Vav Kei represents mercy. Mercy. This is what the Sephardim bring down. Mercy. The name, the word din, judgment, means judgment. It's not a good idea. It's tough love. So these ideas mean something else also. Whenever we say the word rachamim, mercy, we don't just mean you find a poor person, you gave him some money. That's not the extent of mercy. Mercy means the ability to see God clearly. The ability to see God clearly. Again, if we made a word bank, we would say mercy equals ability to see God clearly. Judgment equals inability to see God clearly. Again, if you're looking in a mirror, when the mirror is clear, it's called rahamim. It's called mercy. When the mirror is all dirty and you can't see the picture, it's called midat hadin. And if we think about it, it works. When a person, God forbid, like we said last week, comes out of a terrible incident, what's the first thing he says? Wow, look at the miracle God created for me. Unbelievable. Let's say the guy gets out, God forbid, from a car crash or whatever. It's the first thing. Wow, unbelievable. He saw God. Because, again, he saw God's hand. But what happens when a person is going through a rough day? Oh, God, what happened? God, what are we doing? Again, we should know from such things, but we can't ask about it. We can't say about it. But the one question that was in the Holocaust was, where was God? Where was God? That was a big midat hadin. So midat hadin hides the message. Midat harachamim gives you the message. Okay, so now we need these 2 things to work together. They work together. So again, we give ideas. You have a child, and you want him to understand what it means to have erech, to have value for his toys, let's say. So you give him one toy, and you see he breaks the toy. And he says, okay, it doesn't matter, because mommy and dad will buy me another toy. So he didn't get the message. So now you need to teach him the message. So you give him maybe points, and you say, "You want a new toy? You have to earn it." Now the little child, really wants the toy. So for him, it's painful. I want the toy. But you're causing him through that painful situation, through that midat adin, you're causing him to appreciate, to receive the message of appreciation. It's called rachamim. So you see how rachamim and din work hand in hand. Too much of one hand is no good. Too much of one hand, no good. Too much of love is actually detrimental to a person, right? If you smother someone in love, this is called to be obsessed, right? That's not good, right? Unguarded love is called ta'ava, it's called lust. But too much the other way, the person's dead, he feels nothing, no connection. So we always need to have that balance. So now let's see how this works. Okay? So we said, Rachamim is Yudke Vavke, the ability to see God clearly.
When God judges, if bad things happen, it's also Hashem's duty as well.
Well, right.
Why is the mirror...
Oh, okay, so ready? So now we're going to see it. Din equals the inability to see God clearly. But the word din, let's say, how do you spell din? Dalet, Yud, Nun. Din. Okay? The word din, 3 letters, right? 3 letters, okay? Now, it's the inability to see God clearly, right? But it's only inability to see God clearly so long as we allow it. Because actually hidden inside that midat adin is a godly message. And I'll prove it to you. We discussed last week, right? If there's one letter that you would think equals godliness, what letter would it be? So it would be the Aleph. Aleph. That's why, because the Aleph is called Alufo Shel Olam. Aleph is the word Aleph. Aleph is spelled Aleph Lamed Pei. Aluf, the chief, master, right? So God is called Alufo Shel Olam, the master of the world. But also, in the Aleph, if you look at the Aleph, you see a letter, right? But if I ask you how much in the numerical value of an Aleph, say, it's easy, it's 1. But what if I tell you that Aleph actually can equal 26? You say, come on, now, even if you jimmy the numbers, you can't do that. What are you talking about? So let's see how you create an Aleph. You have a Yud, a Vav, and a Yud. Yud is 10, Vav is 6, and Yud is 10, 26. So hidden inside the Aleph is really 26. It's that godly message, it's Rahamim. So if that's the message, so now it should become clear what the name Aleph Dal Nun Yud means. Because you took Din, and now stick the Aleph in it, you have Aleph Dal Nun Yud now. Now you understood what the judgment was about. The judgment wasn't judgment. It was always mercy. That's why the halakha says that Keshem Shema in this world, Keshem Shema Brachim al Ra, Kach Mevarchin al Tov. Just like we make a blessing on bad stuff in this world, Baruch Dayan HaEmet, so too we make a bracha on good things. Atov Emitiv. Says the Gemara, Be'atid Lavo, in the next, when godliness is revealed, we always make a bracha of Atov Meitiv. Because Midat Adin doesn't exist anymore. It was only there to relay the message. Midat Adin is our dictionary. We're trying to understand the lingo. So God gives us the message inside that thing called Midat Adin. But really, it's only there as long as we allow it to be there as Midat Adin. Really, the truth of the matter is it's Midat Rachamim. But as long as we perceive it as Midat Adin, it's Midat Adin. When we translate it and we do what's called Mitukut Adin, you sweeten the judgment, then you all of a sudden relay the message. So now we see another reason why we have the 4 strings. Because the strings, if you, again, go back to the halakha. What does the halakha says? Halakha says you should always separate the strings. Make sure the strings are never entangled. Right? This is the Rashi Tevot of the word tzitzit. Tzadik, Yafrish, Tzitiotav, Tamid. Tzitzit. Tzadi Yud, Tzadi Taf. A tzadik will always separate the strings of his tzitzit. That makes him a tzaddik. That makes him a tzaddik. What was so special that he's a tzaddik? Because that's easy. So let's separate them. We now became tzaddikim. What made him tzaddik? Because he understood 2 things. The strings represent each one is individual, is separation. But the separation allows him to perceive a message. And I'm going to tell you like this. You have a block of time. Now, I'll give you a scenario. Hey, it's the scenario we used last week, and it's an easy scenario. The guy has a job interview in 20 minutes. He comes out to his car to drive the car, it doesn't start. Finally, it starts, he sees flat tire. Oh, he's waiting. Now he needs to run. He runs to get the bus. The bus, right? He gets to the interview 2 minutes late. The guy looks at him and says, "You're late, buddy. Close the door. I don't need late people." He's all schwitzing. He is sitting there on the bench crying. He's like, "Oh, I don't understand. What's going on here?" As he's crying, his friend walks by. He says, "What are you crying about?" It was a long lost friend. They hadn't seen each other. He said, "Oh, you? What are you?" Oh, they hug him. And then, long story short, the friend ends up hiring him for a position that he needed. And this person he has a parnassah. Okay, so we see that in this story, many things happened. When he came out to start his car, mitat hadin. Car didn't start. Then he saw a flat tire. More mitat hadin. Then he had to run to catch the bus. More mitat hadin. His heart's pounding now, right? His heart's pounding. Okay? Because he doesn't know if he's going to get to the interview on time or not. He gets into the interview, he's all embarrassed. More mitat hadin. Okay? All this mitat hadin. And finally, in the end, mitat hadin. Okay? So what was the point of all that? What was the point of all that? So we're going to learn a few lessons here. The truth of the matter is, in the end, what was supposed to be was going to be. It didn't matter if he would have woken up 7 hours before and tried to start the car, or if he woke up 10 minutes before. What would have been, it was going to be. He was going to be embarrassed at that job. He wasn't going to get the job. God needed him to go through this test in order for him to understand that when you get the job, know who gave you the job, God says. Know who gave you the job. God says, I could have given this guy a job right in the beginning. What was the problem? I could have had his car work for him. He would have got to the interview 5 minutes before the interview. He would have sat comfortably. He would have gotten the job. What's the problem? I had to make him go through all of these things? God said, what? For what? Each one was a message. One was, again, don't rely on your own skills. When I want you to get there, you'll get there. Another one is, why are you nervous? Why are you being nervous? Why are you sweating? When you need to get to the interview, you'll get to the interview. Not a minute before, not a minute after. God runs the world. Don't forget it. Every time. That's the message he was giving him. Different ways to understand it, but that was the way it was translated to him.
But how about in life? Like God give us...
So here, look at this. So if we look at this whole message when I told you the story, we look at the whole story, we say, oh, cute story. We see it's Midat Rachamim. I can see it. But when the guy was going through those pieces, he couldn't see Midat Rachamim. He saw my tire's not running, my car's not starting, I got an interview in 15 minutes. My tire now is not going, I got an interview in 15 minutes. The bus is late, I got an interview in 15 minutes. Every time, all he saw was Midat Hadin. The challenge is to take the separation, take the block of time, because you know in the end, it's going to be Rachamim. You know in the end it's going to be Rachamim. You know that. But when you're faced with this challenge, that's the hard part. That's when the test becomes a test. So what do you have to do? Separate that block. Say, hold on. This is only a separation from the big picture. Let me put it back to the big picture. Let me bring it back to the whole thing. Because I know it's in the end going to be Midat Rachamim. I know it. I'm sure it is. God is Kulo Tov. It can't be anything other. So if that's true, so that means that this piece of Midat Rachamim is actually, it's a missing piece of the puzzle. If I put the piece of the puzzle back, I will see the whole message. So in life, we're faced with pieces. Our challenge is to be mafrish tzityotav, to separate those pieces and say, this is really good. This is really good. This one is also really good, and this one is also really good, and this one, because they're going to add up. Because if you look at what's on the top of it, there's a knot. The knot locks all of those separations together. That's the Midat Rachamim. But when he looked at them, they were all separation in his life. That's why he's a tzaddik. Because a tzaddik comes from the word matzdik. He justifies God. He says, God, I know you're right. I know you're right.